entities, etc. To showcase just a few, we have some documents that we'll be able to share here or afterwards, but the Illinois Hotel and Lodging Association, IHLA, has a hotel reopening guidance PDF, as well as a hotel clean and safe checklist. So our leaders in IHLA, Michael Jacobson and his team, have put together these checklists for our hotel partners, who has been distributed to them. These are guidelines for them to take into consideration when executing the new guest experience that we'll see after post-COVID, during COVID. Restaurants, our restaurant associations put out reopen guidance as well. These are PDFs that you can do checklists, perspectives, reopening, to certain capacities and best practices moving forward. The CDC continues to put out material. Our state does as well. Our local health departments. Connect Meetings Place, one of our largest. Patrick Higgins from last week, he's in the meeting space. We learned that Connect is going to continue to move forward in August with their largest conference, Connect Marketplace. That's going to be held in New Orleans, and they have taken the initiative to create Connect Safe Space, which we can get to, but basically outlines all the measures they're going to do to create a safe and clean plan for the experience moving forward, with safety top of mind, but continuing their work and bringing people together and bringing people together and meetings to across the country. And this is, we saw the Heart of Illinois subregion reopening this week. Therefore, we kind of have a localized plan to move forward. So with that, I want to open up for any questions that may be had right now. Feel free to unmute yourself and maybe ask any questions or start a discussion here before we move forward. If you've heard of any other documents or guidance we have, I'd be happy to hear about it. This is supposed to be a collaborative discussion, and we'll start things off of there before moving on to our next topics.
JD, this is Diane Hahn from Mackinac Vineyard. And I guess my biggest question, and it's probably on the minds of some other people here, we have the Restore Illinois plan locally, and very supportive of Jim and Monica going forward with that. But the real crux of the matter for any of us who hold a state liquor license or who hold the, our state public health department licenses is that as things go forward here locally, we need to have the State House approve those things. And that's a big concern, because locally, I know what our leadership has gone, to prove, and it's very valid. But if our governor does not approve it, all of us with these special licenses that are granted to us by the state could find ourselves in a problem. And so we are bound to go by the state mandates, not the local mandates. So how are we addressing that? Thank you.
Yes, that's a great question, Diane, and thank you for that. That's one of the things that was brought up, I believe, in the press conference on Wednesday. And it was advised that those under state licenses do have to take other precautions as is based on the state's jurisdiction there and the licensing there. In the past conversation and other conversations I've had this week, on that note, it is advised that the Heart of Illinois plan, I think, will roll out close to May 29th, I think, or that's a number, Kevin may be able to correct me on that. Despite the ability to open up locally under this plan, those under state licensures like barbershops and salons are held under the state licensures. It is encouraged that we abide by the state guidelines there, despite having our own localized plan. However, the silver lining is I think there's been movement as it pertains to reopenings and working with the governor's administration. Just for a couple of examples, I know the Diocese of Peoria, the Catholic churches, the bishops have worked with the governors to reopen services for Catholic churches in the area. And so there's entities working directly with the administration to tailor these reopenings. Of course, that's one entity, you're entirely other, but as we continue, as our local leaders, you saw, sharp, bright individuals come up with this plan that tailors Restore Illinois just to a more localized Heart of Illinois area. It starts that discussion a little bit further. We're not asking the state to solve all our problems. I think we're going to see our local leaders go to bat for these businesses, much like yours at Mackinac Valley, to say, this is a different scenario. We are taking the safety and top concern. as we look to recover. So I know it's a little bit of a roundabout answer there for you, Diane, but just know that I think our local leaders who were able to collaboratively put together this plan are going to bat for you with their access to communicate with the governor's administration. So we still have to hear back yet, from what I understand, from whether the governor will accept the plan. And that'll be a big hurdle to clear if it's accepted. If not, we have to tweak it and move forward in whatever our leaders choose to do first. But and we can go back and forth on that, but that's my observation, at least from Wednesday's press conference to where we sit today on Friday, and just a couple of the conversations I've had and some news I've read about. So,
thank you.
Any other thoughts? Or, that's a great question, Diana. Any other questions out there that hopefully we can help clear up the best to our ability? Okay, with that, I do want to shift a little bit to Mr. Evans from the city. Is he be able to provide, we brought him in to provide a little bit of information about the local restaurant customer sentiment survey that was distributed. So without going into too much detail there, I will hand the floor over to him to maybe elaborate a little bit more on the survey and maybe some of the results and some of the perceptions you found from the local level.
Great, thanks, JD. And just by way of kind of opening commentary, I think that you have captured extremely well the efforts behind the scenes in the mayor's offices and city government in terms of trying to be advocates at the state level for local small businesses. So I would not add much to that other than just to say, I think that you've captured it well to Diane's question. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the other behind the scenes efforts that we've been involved in since the shutdown back in March. I've been actively involved in the day-to-day response, obviously looking at the impact of COVID-19 on the restaurant industry nationwide has been devastating. About 8 million workers in the restaurant business have been, 8 out of 12 million workers are basically on the sidelines. And so we started and have really prioritized retail and restaurant as key factors to our local recovery efforts. And so early on, we started really looking at and aligning with both what the National Association of Restaurants and the Illinois State Restaurant Association, and really trying to help disseminate and distribute a lot of that information both to restaurant employees and the business owners. And early on, one of the things that we did is we started trying to expand and promote the discussion that the National Restaurant Association had started floating about what does recovery look like, and asking restaurant owners about the kinds of remediations that might be included in reopening and restaurant recovery. And so we kind of looked at that data. We got a number of responses from local restaurant owners. And then one of the things that we wanted to do is to try and contextualize their responses. And we took the same questions that we asked restaurant owners and we asked local consumers. So we sent out a survey that the PACBB helped us distribute, and the chamber and a lot of local assets. And we just asked consumers here in Peoria, and there is a real truism that Peoria and, as an area, we're speaking as a region, but Peoria, people in Peoria have been really accurate in predicting what the future looks like. I mean, there's a long history, and the idea that, does it play in Peoria is really about the sentiments and the people that live here in our region expressing themselves. And so we thought that that would be valuable. And so we distributed the consumer sentiment survey. We got about 740 local consumers to respond in about 10 days. And then we kind of began to sift through the data. There were not any real big shockers in the data. And so we asked consumers to comment on about 13 different areas. And the two areas that really came forward overwhelmingly, nearly 80%, 77% of people said, we want to see more distance between the tables when we return to dine-in service. And the other thing that was really one of the top responses was that we want to see you cleaning the place frequently throughout the day. On the cleaning front, the question was cleaning at minimum of every 2 hours. And so deep down in the comments, consumers responded that they wanted to see more frequent cleaning. They thought that we understand that restaurants are cleaning and the health department has, very strict rules in terms of cleanliness. But what we really discovered in kind of digging down into the comment section is that people felt like it was important to see the actual efforts of cleaning, not that things had not been cleaned. And then the other thing that really kind of came forward in this was that there is a distinction between the cleaning and the sanitizing. And so it kind of began to kind of get down into the mud. But I think that of the two top responses, we had 561 people out of 730 people say move the tables and space them out differently. And then the next closest was 533 people out of that same number saying, let's have a really high effort on cleaning. Beyond that, things fell down to about less than about 380 people said, look at things like paper menus so that, I'm not touching the same menu that was the traditionally laminated menu. And so I think that those were kind of the big things that came forward. The interesting thing about it was when we surveyed restaurant owners, the number one thing that they said that they had discomfort around was fewer tables and spacing the difference. And so I think the real power of this is that restaurant owners, because if we start, as you start to understand, if you put more distance between the tables, you're effectively telling them that they have to be smaller, they're going to serve fewer people. And when they saw that question, it caused some dissonance for them. And so I think contextualizing it in the voice of the customer that said, this is the number one thing that is the most important to us, has really begun to help move the needle around the thinking of restaurant owners that we've communicated with. And so it's not just somebody from on high from the national association or state association, it's their customers telling them this is the most important thing. And so that was kind of what we wanted to share. I'd be happy to kind of take questions and we can talk about some of the other things that we found and some of the other questions that we asked, but that was kind of the big stuff. And I think it's really interesting to kind of see what's kind of come forward from it.
Thanks, Kevin. To your point there, I thought a lot of great points is particularly towards the recovery and what we see as the hospitality and tourism industry. We know that from surveys we've read, one poll suggested 55% of the efforts want to start localized, right? And so of those 55% polled, what helps maybe tick that number up is knowing that we're taking the provisions or the precautions here locally to what we like to see it tailored. Visible cleaning, space tables, we know what our locals want, therefore we can execute maybe some of this from this survey and this data to enhance that experience here locally as we look to support. We're buying and taking out the best we can, but I think there's an urge to get back into some sense of normalcy, to sit down at a restaurant, enjoy it with your family, have that meal, but what does that environment look like? And the more we tailor to what I know our locals are looking for, that encourages, I think, that local recovery a little bit quicker. I think that's at least one of my observations. And I think to your point too, is Peoria has been pretty accurate with what the future looks like. It's encouraging. And one of the people that's been most optimistic about the future, and particularly an expert in the restaurant industry, is our chairman. And not to put him on the spot, but I know he's been looking at it from different perspectives of owning fast food restaurants as well as sit-down restaurants, family-style restaurants, and how those two look entirely differently right now. But before I hand it over to him, I will open it up for questions for anybody to maybe piggyback off of Kevin's results. Any observations, any questions you have, we'll start there and see if anybody wants to follow with you, Kevin.
Kevin, this is Diane Hahn. Did people have a lot of input about using outdoor spaces? Were they more comfortable with outdoor seating areas versus indoor seating areas? Since we are coming into summer when this potentially could all occur.
We did, and so with regard to the seating, we had about 50 people talk about seating at bars, but there were several hundred people that indicated that if there was an outdoor seating option available, then they would prioritize that over having a dine-in experience inside of the restaurant. And so of all of the things that we asked around seating, we asked about things like, would you be comfortable with seating at the bar or limiting seating at the bar, limiting wait times and those kinds of things. The outdoor seating option was the most preferable choice when we started talking about seating other than the distance between the spaces.
Thank you.
Hey, JD, this is Josh Albrecht with the PACVB. I wanted to add really quick on the outdoor seating question as well. As we were looking at the tourism industry, particularly the meetings industry, one thing that Connect, when we've talked with them and what Patrick brought up at the previous meeting that we hosted, is that they are looking for venues, meeting venues, hotels, civic centers that have a dual outdoor meeting space option or a nearby outdoor option. So they could host a meeting that might be taking place, one of the meetings, the breakout sessions might be happening at the hotel ballroom, but the other breakout session might actually be happening out on the sidewalk in front of the hotel, a small group meeting, or maybe it's at a park a block away. And I think that's one thing that our sales team, Joni and Beth, who are on this call, are really looking forward to. They've already started to put a list together of outdoor spaces, and our wineries are included in that. So places also, like Wildlife Prairie Park, Peoria Zoo, these other multiple use indoor, outdoor, some of those places that used to champion indoor only might be realizing they have outdoor space now that might be a flexible space. Other places that come to mind, 5 Points in Washington. It's got a great new outdoor space that you guys have been working on at developing, already hosting outdoor events. So we really see that there will be, at least over the course of the next year, a demand for that indoor-outdoor experience. Not saying indoor is going away, but just they are looking, the meeting planners right now are looking for that option. And then of course, with our sports tournaments, indoor outdoor is the name of the game, pun intended, right? Like you have the indoor and outdoor opportunities for both. So that will still be a viable way that we're looking forward to, and looking to those industry leaders like Connect to help guide us in what the current meeting planner is looking for as we do our sales missions.
Josh, and the other thing that I would piggyback on with that is that in looking at a lot of this data, obviously a lot of it was directly intended for restaurant, workers and owners, but there's a role that city government plays, because I think that there's been, just as a result of the data here, there are a lot of internal discussions about seeing and allowing more cafes and beer gardens and outdoor seating options in and around restaurants where possible, as we kind of begin to think about what recovery looks like. I think that the role that code has played in the past, where you see few restaurants as a percentage with outdoor seating options, I think that we can expect to see more of that.
Thanks, Kevin. It's good follow-up. And to that point, I do have we can share this document with you, of course. This is a Connect Safe Space 2020. Some of the things they've outlined there, aside from temperature checks, cloth masks will be required for attendees, will be provided as well. Hand sanitizing stations, disinfectant foggers implemented throughout the event. New appointment designs for people to meet with plexiglass and social distancing. Indoor and outdoor spaces will be used as much as possible, clearly stated here. Larger aisleways with one-way aisles only. Educational sessions will be set up to allow for 6 feet space between chairs, different setup. Food and beverage will be provided in a no-contact way, packaged forks, knives, and spoons, napkins, salt and pepper, as you typically see. Those will be provided, and they're eliminating all large general sessions events at this year at Connect. So again, our industry's largest convention and Connect Marketplace, continuing in August with numerous provisions put in place to make sure that those who can attend will feel safe and secure while meeting and trying to increase tourism for their destination. So that's just an example. We have a number of those that I listed off from IHLA and Restaurant Association. I'm sure Josh has taken note that in our follow-up, we'll link to the PDFs that we've been providing in case you don't have them already. But again, have them serve as general ideas for what maybe we can do from a local effort as well. When we move forward and we're selling our venues, we'll be able to implement most likely a lot of these same initiatives based on what our industry leaders have provided. So I did mention that, I don't know if you want to provide any insight from the restaurant and Hoya perspective, but I'm going to yield the floor back over to Mr. Dan Corey here for any general feedback you might have.
Okay, am I good? Okay. What I would like to say, I've been in a lot of discussions and I try to absorb as much as what the governor has said and the local officials have said. But I really think it's very important to want to know. So from the restaurant side of things, that the health department has done a wonderful job over the last 30, 40, 50 years of making sure that all these restaurants are safe. And they've done a wonderful job in preparing us to get us to this point. And I really believe, without really getting on my soapbox, that most restaurants, at least I know our restaurants, are a lot cleaner than what the general public really understands or knows. And I understand that there are concerns and they want to see things cleaned. And I think there's going to be things that we're going to have to do to show that we are cleaning, or that we got sanitation stations by your doors, a little bit more cleaning, making sure that somehow we have to prove that our employees are healthy when they come in. So I think those little things like that are going to happen. What I think that our biggest obstacle in getting reopening is the fear factor. And I speak on that a lot. Meaning that, March 15th, the word comes, you're shutting down. And I've never seen a community come together like they have and listen to what the government has done. But I also think that right now that the fear factor is bigger than the virus factor. I think that what we haven't really heard from, we've heard a lot from the health department. What we haven't heard from the health department yet is what they expect us to do. We're hearing bits and pieces from everybody. We hear bits and pieces from the city, but there's really not a game plan in print or what they have really said. Here's what we really want you to do. Nobody's really said, we want you to take everybody's temperature, your employees' temperature as they come through the door. Nobody's really said, for example, we want your servers to wear rubber gloves when you're serving the dinners to people. What we've heard was we want the tables distance apart. Diana, when it comes to like wedding receptions, I don't think that's going to happen. You're still going to have your groups of 8 to 10 people. People are coming back together. I know in my circle of friends, they stayed away. They looked at you like you were the plague when you first walked up to them a month ago. They would take 2 steps backwards to make sure that they didn't get the virus. And I think that over the last month, you're starting to see people are really, you're starting to see a few hesitant hugs, and so people are starting to get a little bit closer. I see hands coming out a little bit to shake hands a little bit, or they, you know, how they do the elbow bump. People, I think, just got to get past this time, but we really need to pay attention to what our officials say. What the hell really important, it's the health department that's going to sign off. The officials are listening to the health department, and the health department, I believe, will come out with their recommendations, and that's really what I am waiting for. I hear all the different options, you know, paper menus, what have you. I can honestly tell you that I think that, you know, so I can't speak for, I need to speak for all the restaurants, but I can only speak for my restaurants. And that is, there's a different way that we do business between the chain restaurants and the mom and pop restaurant. And the mom and pop restaurants, you know, we have the, for example, the big thing I keep going back to, the governor beat up, I took offense to it when he said, we're not opening the restaurants because they have waitresses, bartender, cooks, and then he said dishwashers, like they were the low level. And the bottom line is, our dishwashers sanitize everything in our place, all the dishware, everything, and all that's mandated by the health department, which most people don't understand or know. So what I'm getting at, I guess, is we need to listen to the health department, and I think the biggest hurdle is the fear factor. We have to get people to understand it's okay to love one another again. That's really, so that's pretty much what I have to say. I think it will come back to normal. I think we'll have some changes in the way we do business. So now you're going to see a sanitation station, I think, somewhere in the restaurant. You're going to, you know, we already wiped down everything. After each individual gets up from one of our tables, we sanitize that table anyway. We were doing that before the virus happened. So a lot of our procedures are in place, and I feel the same way for the hotels. We just have to listen to the health department, see what they want us to do, and we gotta break the fear. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. To piggyback off a little bit of that comment, and one of the conversations I had yesterday with some small business owners was, again, it's gonna come down to, the example was using Yelp. Yelp is an application, of course, searching for something, a place to eat, some place to stay. It comes not just with information about those, but you know, feedback from customers there. I think a large part of your reviews is going to be the cleanliness and the perception of cleanliness as well, and making sure that those that are working there are diligent in cleaning and keeping up with the cleanliness, and it's visible for those to see as well as it pertains to the guest experience. And you know, I know we can go into a deep dive from our hotel standpoint on what that looks like, but the restaurant experience as well, it's going to be just as critical for your reviews as you move forward as a small business, I think. So it's one of the comments that was made from a call I had yesterday. And to that point, happy to open it up there. Anybody that want to comment on that subject still, we can just have an open discussion there.
Good morning, everyone. This is Joni Staley with the Enjoy Peoria. And I would just maybe put Jeff McClendon with the Pure Marquette, as I can see him on
Are
the...
you muted still?
Oh, I'm not on my end.
Can you unmute her?
I can hear.
Okay. Thank you.
I can hear.
Good morning. Thank you. I would just piggyback.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Joni. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see if we can figure that out.
Okay.
Kevin just mentioned in the comments, we'll get back to you, Joni, here in just a second. If we can figure out that audio issue, we'll get your thoughts here. But Kevin just provided in the comments, if anyone's interested in the details of the survey results, please email him at kevins@peoriagov.org. So thank you, Kevin, for that. Joni, did we figure out the audio yet?
It seems that some people can hear me. Yes?
Yeah, I can hear her.
Yeah, okay. So what I was going to comment is that on the hotel side, much like Mr. Evans stated on the restaurant side, that guests want to see people cleaning, whereas most cleanliness products were happening in the, you know, maybe the odd hours of the day that the guests want to see cleaning happening now. Jeff, have you heard that in your circle?
If you can hear me, yeah, we've heard that too. And I think one of the things that in the hotel side is going to be communication and perception. So when someone enters, as Dan mentioned, there's going to be sanitation stations. In our particular case, we have catering tables that protect the front desk. So there's still a 6-foot barrier. So immediately the guest eyes is, okay, they're practicing social distancing, they're sanitary, they're clean. And then of course, the physical presence of, you know, people wiping down elevator buttons and things like that. Those are going to be critical, and communicating to the guest, what products, new products are you using that's combating either the COVID or any type of other viruses that may be out there. So we have partnered with, Marriott has partnered with Ecolab. So we've got a whole litany of products that are coming down the pipe. And the second thing I will echo on that is from a conversation, or I think a week or two, JD, you're going to start seeing more medical items moving at a price point that you can afford in the room side with respect to cleaning, ultraviolet cleaning wands and things of that nation. So those are things I think probably in Q4, you'll see hotels start using those when the price comes down a little bit.
Joni, my apologies. That was on me. Obviously, everybody could hear you. So I was on my side because I'm socially distancing with my chairman across the office. And to keep the feedback, I muted mine. So I couldn't hear a thing anybody was saying, except for when Dan was talking.
I love it.
So
Thank
that's
you.
my fault on that one.
No
I'm a
problem.
millennial. I should know these things. But let's see. Good. Pardon me. I'm sorry. I missed much of what you were saying, Joni. But I did make a couple questions here. Any comments there off what Joni and Jeff were able to elaborate on?
Yeah, actually, JD, this is Josh again. I just wanted to sort of double down on what they're saying in regards to, we have a lot of different community partners and members on this call today. Obviously, a Visitors Bureau, we work with people from museums like Wheels of Time, to hotels like the Peoria Marquette, to restaurants like the Lariat Steakhouse. But we also help with retail, and we also help with the community at large. So we're really focused on all aspects of hospitality, travel and tourism, all aspects of entertainment even. And one of the goals I think coming out of this that we're really looking forward to is taking some of these little nuggets, things like Jeff mentioning ultraviolet wands to help disinfect and sanitize rooms in the future. How can that same thing that the hotel industry is using be implemented, for instance, in the restaurants? Or perhaps that's a great way for the hands-on activities at Peoria Riverfront Museum. Maybe they can use that same technology, if they haven't thought of that yet, to help sanitize some of the hands-on things that they have at the museum. And how can we really share information with each other in the community and use that as a way that we can all work together and move forward. And I think that's really what our goal at the end of this is to take these notes, hear what everybody's saying, these little nuggets, and then bring that all together, coalesce that into a nice initiative and maybe it's a recommendation or a plan, whatever word you want to use, but get that into one spot so that people can go and say, okay, yeah, this will work for us. This will work for my business. That's working for the hotels, but I think if I did it this way, it would work great for my restaurant. And so that's really our goal here with moving forward and trying to, idea share and get that out there so people can have solutions moving forward when we reopen.
Just an additional comment to that, Josh. The wine industry, we're trying to, of course, work on reopening plans very specific to wineries with indoor and outdoor spaces. And then, as we know, the cleaning and the trust factor is essential. We had talked, and I don't know if this is something, along with just providing shared information, especially since we do have a number of small businesses that aren't supported either by a chain that they're part of, or a maybe backed by some city or local entity, that maybe there would be some kind of buying group where, you know, there was a leadership taken of buying masks in quantity or hand sanitizer or different things like that, that maybe members could take some kind of advantage of that kind of help.
That was a great comment, Diane. And I'm just going to just piggyback off of Josh and a few previous comments as well. If anyone has outdoor space that they have recently transformed to outdoor space, or as a result are transforming to outdoor space as a result of COVID-19, please reach out to me, and I'm happy to share my cell phone and email address as a result, because we'd love to make sure that we're promoting it to the meeting planners that are in fact, and visitors that are in fact still looking to place meetings well into the future. So definitely please reach out with those outdoor spaces. Like Josh mentioned, we have started a list, and we're eager to sell the community as any way that we can and always possible. And for those that maybe weren't on our last town hall meeting, I want to reiterate that, you know, all the experts are saying that the drive market and the leisure traveler will come back first. And so we are focusing on creating a safe community across the board, above and beyond brand standards that are mandated by management and ownership, a safe community to really set us apart from our comp set, to attract those leisure and day travelers that hopefully will stay overnight at least 1 or 2 nights, and then again lead into the meetings and conventions and sports travelers. So thank you all for being on this call, and definitely reach out if you have any additional ideas for selling components, again, to get people back to our beautiful community. Thank you. Yeah,
that's great. Great words, Joni, and definitely part of you know, having the success in reopening for our region. You know, I would say, Diane, for your specific question of a buying group, or trying to find ways that several organizations can work together. Dan Corey, who's our board chairman, who spoke earlier, is also the board chairman for the Heart of Illinois Hospitality Association. We work closely with HOIHA. I know a lot of our hotel partners and restaurant partners on the call are members of HOIHA as well. And perhaps that's something we can work with HOIHA on, in establishing a buying group, or at least looking into the matter some more to see what kind of resources we can provide for the community.
Yeah, my chairman and I are just discussing on mute here. Sorry, Diane, for your question. We dove into a little bit about that question a little bit more, and just ways that all other entities, particularly CVB and HOIHA, can come together on that, and ways to I mean, we got to keep every idea on the table and every option towards, you know, the experience and patron safety. So I think that's something we can follow up on. I know I have a meeting with the HOIHA on Monday, I believe, to talk a little bit more in depth on some of these strategies as well. But you know, I encourage you to always send those over to us in case there's ways to, you know, any new innovative way that we can contribute to this moving forward, I think is going to be accepted, at least for consideration here. So I know we're coming up a little bit, and just watching the time here on our time. For everybody else on the call, you know, one of the questions we have is, you know, what other resources can be helpful for you, you know, our partners? What other ideas are out there that we can maybe work with, maybe be a resource towards bringing those ideas to implementation? If it's not us at the CVB, you know, facilitating conversations with entities that could, you know, be of a greater assistance to you. So any ideas out there that's come to mind that you'd be willing to share before I close things up?
JD, I do have a question. My name's Lisa Scott, and I run the home show at the Civic Center. I'm an employee of the Home Builders Association. We're a much different animal than some of the conversation from today, but our 15,000 people who come down to the show to visit or exhibit during a 3-day period in February often patronize the restaurants. Our out-of-town visitors stay at the hotels, but most of our companies that exhibit a show, 250 companies, are mom and pop Peoria area businesses that we all need to survive. We need to have the show to survive as a not-for-profit trade association. I looked at the regional plan and I was happy to see that it wouldn't require a vaccine for me to have a show in February with 10,000, 15,000 people. But I'm wondering, on the plan review element of that, has much thought been given to how someone or an organization might help guide a public show like ours, similar to the auto show, the RV show, the farm show? Those are probably the big 4 or 5 that occupy the building in these type of environments. How would we go through that plan review process?
Specific to Peoria, I think that starts with the CVB and our Peoria Civic Center. I know we continue conversations. I do, at least with Rick Edgar, the GM over there. And I just missed a call from Matt Bartolo, the chairman, which you may know, Lisa, the chairman of the Civic Center there too, as it pertains to not just what meetings can we reschedule or rebook or recruit to Peoria, but what does that look like? And again, how do we take some of the provisions here that we've seen from, say, Connect or our larger industries like Destinations International, and even our Illinois Council of Convention and Visitors Bureau, our organization statewide for CVBs. I think we're going to start looking towards, what are the precautions we can start implementing from a facility or an organization to provide that experience so they can go on without, being on, without any hiccups. One of the things we were frustrated from a CVB standpoint was meetings and conventions were in phase 5 of Restore Illinois. Yeah, I'm sure there's some reasonings for that, but as it pertains to our industry and economic recovery, I think there's a safe way to implement some of these like the home shows, perfect example of generating a lot of activity in one place and supporting the mom and pop restaurants and small businesses surrounding the area. There's a way to implement this in a safe way. And I think those discussions, at least to answer your question, I believe would be to start with us and the Civic Center and the venue you'd be operating out of. I think this is going to be top of mind for years to come. And I think, we're in May right now, and home show next year, we have plenty of time to customize the experience ahead of time. That's not to mention any scientific developments that come with combating COVID too. So, the picture, I asked, as much as we try and predict anything more than a month out, I think that's the time frame in which it gets a little grayer. I think it's tough to predict anything related to this a month out. So it's also a blessing in the sense that the event in February, January, February, March of next year gives us plenty of time to adapt and adjust to make sure they can go on uninterrupted in a safe way. So I continue, at least even now, just reach out to those venues or to have those discussions in the best way. We'd happy to facilitate some of those discussions too, as I know the Civic Center is going through some tough times now. They're in this storm just as much as anybody else. That any way we can answer those questions or help get those questions in front of the right people, we can be an asset for that.
Well, and that would be great. While my show's in February, it's time for me to start selling booths. So June is the time that I need to reach out to the 250 companies that support the show and try to convince them that we will have a show and that we will have a safe plan. And so it's more immediate than the visitor that will come in February. My immediate concern is selling the booths, or else I don't have a show for the visitor in February. Yeah. So that's it. It's an immediate need for us, and we'll try to work with the facility. I've tried to reach out, and I know they're, not there due to the business shutdowns, but we will try to make some contact there as well and come up with a safety plan.
Excellent. And Joni's taking note on it. She even mentioned in the comments, a good reference for your type of event is the Event Safety Alliance Reopening Guide. So again, another guide that we can base it off of as we prepare. And you can have these discussions and right now with those booths and those sponsors to say, hey, we know this is a way out, but we know that as we continue to plan for February, we are taking into account the safety reopening guides. So again, I think Joni, not to speak for her, I'm sure she might be able to follow up with you and talk maybe a little bit further as to how we can at least have those discussions with Civic Center while you're having your discussions with your clients and your sponsors.
Yeah, that would be really great.
Great, wonderful. Thank you for that question. Anybody else?
Hey, JD, it's Roberta at Wildlife Prairie Park. I had a thought on what I've been doing in respect. Someone asked the question, I think from Mackinac, about those of us that have the state liquor licenses and things and how we don't want to get out of alignment and then be, risk not getting those things. So one of the things I've just been trying to do is follow what is happening at the state parks, because like Starved Rock. So would be most similar to Starved Rock, and they do a lot of the things that we all do. And the state uses an abundance of caution when allowing their facilities, which include the state parks, to conduct certain business. So I look at what they're doing, and if they're being allowed to do it, then it might be okay. So right now, Starved Rock is still closed. Starved Rock doesn't actually know when they're going to be open to do any of those things, but as soon as they get the green light, then it kind of lends credibility that we might also have that green light as well, because they're not going to tell one of their institutions, hey, you can start selling alcohol and you can start doing this, and then tell us we can't.
Yeah, right. It's a great observation.
Roberta,
Thank you for that input.
And Roberta, I think that's a good point. And Dan, you may have some thoughts on this too, because I mean, obviously many of the restaurants also have liquor licenses, and with reopening for guests, are you able to sell drinks with meals is going to be part of what the patrons will ultimately want. And, we all want to stay within the proper boundaries of these things, because we're taking the long view, certainly, of our businesses and how we have those relationships. So I don't know, any thoughts with the restaurants? And I agree, we're trying to follow, a kind of a wobbly trail between what is the state doing with their entities and what are our local people doing. So thank you, Roberta.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. So what I think is I think that we are in a holding pattern for at least a week, because the city of Peoria, or I should say the group of mayors, the coalition of mayors, sent this letter, right, that everybody knows, to the governor, and they're waiting to see if he signs off on it. They're waiting to get his permission first. We don't know what those discussions are, if they're talking to the governor about it or not, if they're negotiating or not. But the one thing that I heard out of the mayor's meeting was they didn't know exactly when that timeline was, when they were going to open us up, but they thought that there was going to be a phase-in protocol that they were going to recommend. So that tells me, so this is just my observation, that tells me we're still 7 to 10 days away, which puts us right up against where the governor was going to open up the state of Illinois to the next phase. We might be only talking 1 or 2 days difference in this liquor license issue. I think that, and just on a side note, I just think it's funny how they will allow us to do curbside service with alcohol, but they won't allow us to sell the alcohol now, that they would revoke our license now. And I know it's the group thing. There's just a lot of, I think there's just a lot of political play in there, but I really think that by the time our mayors give us a phase to open up, I think we're gonna be right around those dates of the state of Illinois. And so then I think we just kind of got to wait and see. I'm anxious. I wanted to open up. I'm telling you, I wanted to open up March 17th. That's all. I don't know how else to put that, but so we're patiently waiting. We really have to adhere to the health department. I'm more afraid of the health department than I am the governor. The health department can come in and shut us down at any moment if they want to, but they're not throwing the innuendos out there like the governor is, to keep north of I-80 precious and whole. And why he's ignoring south of I-80, I don't know. There's several hot spots in America right now: New York City, New Jersey, Chicago, and I think Washington, D.C. is right there. I have a son in Washington, D.C., and I'm scared to death for him because he's in the middle of all that stuff. And so, but the rest of us seem to be whole. Different physicians in Peoria have conveyed to me that they believe that the virus here in Peoria is very, very nil. The city of the mayors were a little bit more vague about it, but they felt very confident that we are in a very healthy environment right now. Not that we still shouldn't be alarmed, Not that we still shouldn't, you need to wash your hands. I can't emphasize, you wash your hands, you're gonna be fine. So with all that said, we have to wait for how these mayors want us to open up our area. And I have a hunch, because there's state money at risk to come to our areas, that they're gonna get us open right around the same time the state is, which is in about 10 days, 12 days. So there might be a day or two difference, but there's been a lot of ray of hopes, and every time either the local politicians or the state says something, there's always another 14 days tacked on. So, but I think we're getting closer. So that's it. I'll get off my soapbox.
One of the things I'll capitalize off here on Mr. Corey's comments is, you know, we have entities that want to make sure that the information being handed down each day from our federal, state, and local levels is accurately, you know, sent out. And I would encourage you all, if you haven't already, check out gpcovid.com. Our Chris Setti at the Economic Development Council has said that he has his weekly updates or his daily updates that come out in the afternoon, which is many entities send out afterwards as well. But you can always go to gpcovid.com on those daily updates. For as so much is changing from all different types of levels, we can keep the information accurate there. And like I said at the beginning, we just make sure that Enjoy Peoria and the CVB here can properly you know, pass out that information as well. And we feed a lot of what we take from Chris Setti's updates. So if you want to go straight to that source, gpcovid.com for those updates. We are coming up here, we have just passed the top of the hour. I will, before I conclude, if there's any other questions, feel free to speak now, or we can follow up afterwards. I can provide my information here in the chat as well. I know my director of sales, Joni, and Kevin has provided some information too. So we can always follow up after the case as well. Any questions out here before we close up? Okay, that being said, I'll quickly remind everybody that we stand with you. Like I said, we just want to make sure you guys get the information. We have this discussion. Being local, I think we understand the safety and the need to reopen and doing that properly under the proper guidelines. The word that keeps coming to mind, or that keeps coming up, is fluid. Everything is fluid throughout all this, and we just want to make sure we help you throughout it the best we can. Tourism loses about $20 billion a week across the nation. $20 billion a week, and that affects every town and municipality. And as we look to recover, we know that will be a big influence in economic recovery. Any way that we can do that by promoting you and helping you is our top priority right now, as we prioritize and execute the days and months ahead. So with that, we look to keep you posted on more of these tourism on targets from different avenues, and we'll keep you posted on the agendas and the special guests we'll have. But with this time, I want to thank you again for joining us, our staff, our special guests, and Dan Corey and Kevin Evans from the city of Peoria, and our PACVB staff as well. Once again, I'll get my information in the chat box here, but I look forward to talking with all of you again, and please enjoy and be safe this weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, JD.